Good morning, Chavre. Today is the third day of Teves. In today's lesson, the definition of klipa, meaning a shell, is something that obstructs the godly light on its own rather than surrender to Hashem. There are two levels of obstruction, one opaque and one translucent. I don't know what the difference is. What's the difference between opaque and translucent? Michael, we don't know, right? I'll have to figure it out. That which is forbidden, meaning evil, is opaque. Okay, we'll see. We're on page 59. Remember, we said yesterday that if we're not batel to Hashem, if it's about self and ego, then it's not dedicated to Hashem. It's either godly or it's the other side. Now we're trying to describe the other side. So he says, anything that does not surrender itself completely to Hashem and say that this happened because Hashem wanted it to happen. Hashem created this. There's a purpose for this thing to happen. Or if somebody considers himself or herself separate, then they do not receive its life from the holiness of God. Oof. Strong words. Rather, again, it does not receive from the innermost aspect of the holiness, rather from the backside, so to speak. So we want to receive the light of Hashem from the front, from the best, from the innermost. Pnimius is from the same word as panim, face, but also pnimius is internal. When a person receives from the acharayim, from the backside, that's limited life force, which reaches the klipa by descending degree by degree through the myriads of levels in the chain-like descent of the worlds in the manner of cause and effect. B'tzimtzum rabim and many contractions through this process, where the light, which started very bright and it was shining brightly, gets diminished as it goes to lower level through this chain of descent. And the light becomes so greatly diminished until it's able to become contracted and clothed in a manner of galus, so to speak, which means that instead of being surrendered to godliness, the object in which the vitality is clothed, master it. For example, a captive in exile is mastered by his captors. It does not have the ability to shine on its own the way it wants to. Vitality is thus in a state of galus, exile within the object, whether it's an object, whether it's a person, separate from holiness, giving it vitality and existence, causing that object to pass from non-existence to existence. Because if something is, if the light is truly revealed, then it would be batel to Hashem, then it really wouldn't exist. It would be nullified into godliness. If it was batel to Hashem, it would return to nothingness. But this way, it's so far away from its original state that it does not become batel to Hashem. That's why this world is called the world of the shell and the other side, klipa and sitra, despite the fact that this world too receives its vitality from God's holiness, except that it's so dumbed down, if you will, and goes from one level to the next until it feels like it's its own independent entity. That's why everything in this world is difficult, it's painful, it's severe and evil. Since the light of Hashem gets so contracted and so distorted and so diluted, that's why this world, we see the evil that takes place. Because godliness is hidden, and so therefore it's dark. It's dark from the light of Hashem. It's the light of Hashem is there, obviously, otherwise the world wouldn't exist. In Agad, the Alter Rebbe writes in a footnote here, Im hayois b'seichai eser sfiris ta'asiyah l'kedusha k'mesh kosbeitz chaim shar mem gimel. This world obviously contains 10 spheres of the world of Asiyah. Otherwise, as we said before, the world wouldn't exist. All the spheres go down from one world to the next. It's still there. Unfortunately, it trickles down so little that sometimes at the end, you don't even recognize the way from where it started. So now when we talk about klipos, they're divided into two categories, one lower than the other. That's what we were talking about before, Michael. Opaque versus translucent. Two categories. The lower category consists of 3 completely unclean, evil klipos, containing no good whatsoever. Shalish klipos atmeis v'rois legamrei ve'ein bahen toiv klal. Nikro b'merkeves Yechezkel ruach sa'ara onon godo. And the prophet of Yechezkel, in his vision of the divine chariot, he saw and described the forces that completely conceal godliness. They're described as a storm wind and a great cloud and a flaring fire, representing these 3 unholy klippos. That's where all the evil comes from. All the darkness, all the pain, all the suffering. As I said the word, I saw the picture of Eli Schlanger, who was murdered from an evil terrorist. That's where it comes from, these ideas and this ideology. From their flow and are derived the souls of evil and the sustaining forces of their bodies. The nafshes, as I mentioned, the nafshes kol baalei chayim atmeim v'asurim v'achila v'kiyum gufam. Okay. V'kiyum chayis kol malachos asuros v'atzemeach k'moy orla v'kile hakerem k'moy shekos v'etz chayim. Now, what about things that are forbidden? They also come from these 3 unclean klippos. Things that we're not allowed to eat, things that we're not allowed to touch, such as arla, the first 3 years of fruit of a tree, and a mixture of grain seeds in a vineyard. Kilayim is when you do a combination of different animals and different vegetables and fruits and things like that. This is forbidden. And if we would do it, God forbid, it comes from, why do we not do it? Because it comes from the 3 unclean klippos. You wonder, why did I speak like that? Why was I in such a dark, angry mood? Comes from these 3 unclean klippos. By the way, that's the Yetzer Hara's job. That's the 3 unclean klippos' job, to try to get into your head so that we have the challenge to overcome it and choose life and choose good and choose godliness. So the animal soul is of the klippas noiga, which we didn't get into too much yet, but klippas noiga is sort of the in-between, it's neutral. And that's an animal soul. It can go either way. You get a pet dog, it could be a good doggy, right, Paul? Or it could be a vicious dog. Depends on how you train it and how you treat it and how you harness it and how how it conducts itself. So that's the animal within us. The animal within us wants to eat, that wants everything, me. We train it properly and we watch over it, it could be, in fact, used for good things. So it's sort of neutral. And that's where the animal soul comes from, the klippas noiga. And everything, the takeaway is everything that happens receives energy from Hashem. It may possess evil, but Hashem sustains it to exist. And the question is why? And we're going to discuss that tomorrow in the next chapter, chapter Zayin.